Welcome everybody. While you're filing in, we will give everybody a few minutes just to make sure that they have the opportunity to log on before we get started, but hopefully you're in the right place. Okay, I think we could go ahead and just let people sort of come in as they will. This will be recorded, so it will be available for everybody afterward. There'll be a follow-up email with a link, and that will also include our panelist presentations that will come sort of within a week or so to all of our attendees and panelists. Welcome to our discussion today, small square footage homes and why they are important. My name is Andrea Jacobs, and I'm hosting on behalf of the team at Housing North. Briefly, Housing North is a regional nonprofit that focuses on the housing needs of the 10 Northwest counties of Lower Michigan by increasing awareness, outreach, and advocacy. I am the Emmett County Housing Ready Program Director, and Housing Ready is a Housing North initiative that very generally seeks to place staff in each county to be fully focused on working with the most effective networks, sort of hyper-local individuals and organizations that can be empowered to encourage intentional community-driven residential development and help reduce barriers to development and ensure the best chance of success for projects. Housing Ready is an important position and an important program that's sort of expanding beyond, started in Charlevoix County, then Emmett County, and recently we have embraced Leelanau and Manistee County into this sort of Housing Ready staff. But some of the barriers I just wanted to highlight, I like to say things like opportunities instead of barriers, but one of those is the policy language in the townships and the municipalities. Zoning limitations, for example, is it even allowable to build what you would like to build? The second barrier we work with is financial. That one's obvious to probably everybody, not only materials costs, but in our rural region, infrastructure expansion is prohibitively expensive and all kinds of other things that add to that financial burden to any kind of development. And that requires within a community a lot of creativity and a lot of collaboration. So a Housing Ready staff and person in place to be maintaining those networks and encouraging those partnerships is super important. And the third barrier is our build barrier, the workforce issue, lack of skilled trades, and the seasonality of our timelines in our region is a huge factor. We don't live in the kind of area where you can necessarily build a stick-built house year-round and work on a 12-month timeline. So that extends projects, which also extends, expenses and the necessary patient capital that we don't always have. So smaller square footage homes are one strategy that encourages us to consider each of these barriers and more. So I would like to introduce our panel today, David Allen of Innova Lab Development and Aaron Weaver of Innovative Tiny Homes. Bruce Thompson from Urbaneer might be back for a follow-up at some point, but had to bow out, unfortunately. And Lauren Tucker was going to speak on behalf of the Home Builders Association. Now, I don't know exactly what she was going to talk about, but it's important to have the Home Builders Association in mind when we are considering some of the challenges and some of the opportunities for these projects moving forward. The workforce challenges in the skilled trades, major loss after 2008, another aging workers in the skilled trades with little or no succession strategy or attraction strategy in our area. puts a lot of pressure on developing our own workforce and educating our young people into the skilled trades and creating opportunities for them. And then speaking toward those educational opportunities with new designs, build styles and technologies that can be really exciting for young people coming into the trades. And thinking about this smaller square footage homes, and in particular, some of these modular designs, the idea of more and better working conditions in our climate particularly allows for year-round employment. You know, historically, people who were in the building trades frequently could work for 6 months out of the year and then oftentimes would get laid off or have to find, you know, supplementary work during the winter season. And these manufacturing facilities, you know, create opportunities for year-round production and employment. So from an individual standpoint, it's a super important part of us being able to build and attract our workforce. The smaller square footage strategy to address inventory and variety as far as our needs in the region, you know, is very effective, but it's also thinking about it from that individual experience and the workforce standpoint is an economic possibility for many more communities to create small and larger manufacturing sites for some of these style homes and projects. So I think if I could speak on behalf of the Home Builders Association, those might be some points that I would draw toward. Of course, I am not a professional in that world, but I do see how this topic of discussion is very meaningful toward our future in that way. So with that, I will introduce David and let him talk about the smaller square footage projects and organizations that you have focused on, especially in Michigan. I want to highlight that both of our panelists today are Michigan companies. So any concerns or challenges that we have climate-wise and distance, availability, seasonality, all of those things are important to these individuals and these companies and are part of our discussion today. So with that, David, I will let you take it away.
Great, thanks very much. I appreciate you having me. Very quick background, I've got a 30-year history in doing community development. Started a large nonprofit housing corporation in Grand Rapids called Link. Did that for 10 years, then ran the Kent County Land Bank Authority, and now have branched off with an overlap development group. The last 3 years I was in the Kent County Land Bank, we got involved in modular construction and did about 15 homes. And then when the county decided they no longer needed the land bank, I kept going on with modular construction because I really think it's a solid answer towards a lot of the issues that Andrea brought up, which I'll talk about in my PowerPoint presentation. So between myself and my business partner's career, I think we're collectively responsible for about over $100 million in development, over 5,000 units of housing over 30 years. So we have a vast experience both in stick build as well as modular. So I come to this with a lot of experience and a lot of passion about local workforce and affordable housing, which is kind of, you'll see some of this in my presentation. So with that, I'm going to attempt to share screen. Andrea, can you see that? All right, great. So let me wake her up here. Sorry, it's not going. There it is. So I'm going to state the obvious just to kind of set the table. Michigan, we have a housing problem. This is from the governor's office, actually, in a recent report. What we have here is owner moves versus owner's units available and renter moves versus renter units available. And you can see the tremendous disparity we have on housing in the state of Michigan. Current estimates are that the state of Michigan is short 87,000 houses, and that's from the Up for Growth 22 housing shortage strategy. And then the Home Builders Association, we've been in close contact with them since the start of getting involved in modular. According to the Michigan Home Builders Association, at their peak in the 90s, Michigan home builders averaged 4 home starts annually. That number dropped to less than 10,000 in 2009, and it has not recovered. It's estimated that Michigan builders are averaging less than 20,000 new home starts annually, and we need Don Crandall from the Michigan Home Builders Association Legislative Affairs Director estimates recently that we need 25,000 to 30,000 new home starts just to keep up with aging stock. So that doesn't even include the housing shortage. So when you consider new home starts priced for missing middle or attainably to be priced homes, obviously we know the shortage is overwhelming. So why are so few builders willing to start homes for the sector of our population that need it most? I've got a couple of issues. Communities have limited capacities. It's not like a large city that has a huge community development department. It could attract all kinds of grants and other various entitlements, especially in the outstate region. The cost profile for attainably priced houses is just too high for developers. They'd have to do major volume to make the amount of profit and overhead they make on like one $650,000 house. So there's no incentive, if you will, for developers to take on this market. There's not enough small scale developers. Inventory of homes is at a record low. And too often, Andrea mentioned the zoning or building requirements, municipal fees inhibit the development of small scale attainably priced homes. So those are just some of the issues. So we like to say it's time to try modular. At the beginning, I want to clarify where modular talks is built as state building code. It's not manufactured housing. It's built in a factory, delivered to the site, set it on foundation, but it meets all local building code. The modular advantages are quality control. All the houses are built in a closed environment, in a 500,000 to a million square foot warehouse, and it goes through an assembly line process. So it's not like you're standing it out in the rainstorm in the mud trying to frame in a square window. Construction speed from the time a modular home is set on the foundation to the time you get use and occupancy is about 60 days. I'll talk a little bit about more of that later. Energy efficiency. They're incredibly energy efficient. We're working right now with with Brett Little from the Green Home Institute on actually getting our modular factories rated so that they'll be rated for possible LEED certification automatically by the nature of the process. They're stronger and more durable construction. They're made to go down the road, so they're very robust. And I could go into the details on that, but I'd bore you. Less waste. Everything's cut to measure in the factory, so the entire waste of a modular home can fit in a 55-gallon drum. So you don't even have, there's not even large dumpsters, and they're neighborhood friendly. If you're building in a neighborhood, it's set on the foundation in one day, it's done in 60 days. It's not multiple weeks of hammering and nail guns and all that kind of stuff, which a lot of people don't think about that. In the urban environment, it's very true. We have designed models. We work very closely with Skyline Champion to develop models that aren't your traditional, what you'd see out in a beltway, which basically look like double wides, but they happen to be modular. We've developed homes that really fit in the community. It's our goal at Inova Lab that the homes are not stigmatized, that they aesthetically fit in the neighborhood or the community where they're going. So just a few examples of some of our homes. This is a project we just did in Michigan, in Holland. I was just on the site yesterday. This is called the Creston Model. This is also in that same development. Nice little, this one's really efficient to build. It's a 12-12 pitch roof. So we frame in 2 bedrooms and a bath upstairs after the modular is set. This is a very creative project we did in Grand Rapids, some modern looking townhouses. Most people would never believe that those were modular. This is a more traditional ranch home. The most cost efficient modular home is a 2-box ranch. So price per square foot, installation, finish work, that is going to be your best bet for affordability. This is a duplex that we have designed and called the Uptown 2, which is you're getting 2 houses for the price of 1. So there's a cost efficiency there. And then when it comes to fit and finish, we're very careful. These are the actual photos from the inside of some of the modulars that we've done. And these are all affordably priced. So the fit and finish is quite spectacular. We even offer luxury vinyl plank flooring, tile backsplashes. This is a very fancy kitchen in one of our houses. Even the rolled vinyl has a really high quality. So this slide's super important, and I want to take just a minute with it, because the modular industry as a whole, and by whole I mean all the factories, not just Champion Skyline, they are in the midst of a major change right now, like a tsunami caused by supply chain issues, material cost increases, labor shortages, and an overwhelming increase in volume. I'd like everybody to note this point. Most smaller modular factories are currently not taking new customers as they are not able to keep up with the demand from their longtime regular customers. And many of the smaller modular factories, their production timeline is out 18 to 24 months from the time you place an order. Currently, modular factories around the country are backed up with historic backlogs of orders. The Topeka plant, the Champion Topeka plant in Indiana, is the largest modular plant in the world. They have 5 to 7, depending how they structure it, lines where they can manufacture homes. Each line builds a house every 3 days, and they have a back order of 3,800 homes, which is astounding. The theme right now in the modular industry is no customization. Plants have had to all but eliminate any new models or any customized models. They must stick to the home models that they currently have in their inventory that are in their system. And the illustration I'll give you is that one of the main plants that we work with in Strattonville, Pennsylvania, used to regularly build Hilton hotels. And Hilton came and wanted 3 new hotels built, and Champion told them, no, we won't do it because our lines can't even keep up with our regular customers. So to turn away a multi-billion-dollar like Hilton kind of illustrates for you, if you will, the state of play. I have a list of 8 modular companies that currently build for Michigan. Michigan's one of 7 states in the nation where the state has to approve all modular plans. So modular companies kind of avoid Michigan for that reason. A third-party approval system is much better. But you have Champion, Skyline, Ritz-Craft, General Housing Corp, Clayton, Champion, Skyline. They have the best timelines. I believe they have the best price and the best quality. Says my internet connection's unstable. I live in the woods, so hopefully I'm not freezing on you. Almost done. So I want to do modular, now what? Key points to remember, the price per square foot. Now, Andrew talked a lot about smaller homes, and we have some experience with that. And I'm going to turn most modular, small, tiny homes or smaller homes over to Aaron's company. The price per square foot does not go down as you reduce the square footage. The price for a 500 square foot home will almost be the same of an 1,100 square foot home. Now you may say that's crazy. Why is that? Well, because they're built in a factory. So they built in a labor factor for every house that goes through that line. And it doesn't matter whether that's a 500 square foot house or a 1,600 square foot house. It's the labor factor. So as you reduce your square footage, you're not reducing your price per square foot. We recently had a customer that wanted a very small 550 square foot custom small. It's not tiny, but it's pretty close to tiny. And the cost for that unit built, they had to do all kinds of custom work inside because of its small size. The price for that 500 square foot home came in at $356,000. We were also recently approached by a group in Grand Rapids to build tiny houses between 350 and 500 square feet on some lots in Grand Rapids. And same thing, they were priced exorbitantly high. We're still working with that group, but we're in the 750 to 1,000 square foot range, and we're meeting our goals. The sweet spot, if you're thinking about using modular for affordable housing, is 1,100 to 1,600 square foot house, 1,600 square foot. Traditional modular home models that are in a company's lineup will run between $165 and $185 per square foot to build. That's the total cost all in. That doesn't include the site cost or the land cost. It also doesn't include well, septic, garages, or unusual site conditions. But if it's a city lot or with city water and sewer, and there's no unusual site conditions, you could figure between 165 and 185 per square foot. And if you're thinking ranch homes, you're going to be in that 165 range. If you're thinking 2-story or capes, you're going to be in the 185 range. Another key point to remember is do not start with your own architect. A lot of groups come together, they have their architect, they draw some designs, then they bring it to me. That you're wasting your own money because the factories have their own architects, their own engineers. That comes with the cost of it. So save that money. If you're thinking about doing a development, you might think about doing modular, start with the modular and don't go to an architect. I love architects, but just don't want you to waste your money. A traditional modular dealer's business model is not too conducive to attainably priced homes, but check one near you anyways. So if you have a modular home builder dealer near you and you want to get into modular, your first step should be to talk to them. talk to them about what you're looking for, talk to them about the quality, the size, the price. And if they can do it, that's really going to be your best bet. The modular home industry protects its dealer network very closely, and that's across all brands. Most likely a cold call to the factory will not work. They usually will always refer you to a dealer. And this last point's the most important. If you cannot get a local dealer, I encourage you, and you want to try modular in your region, find a builder that's willing to branch out and add modular to what they do. Novolab's currently working on strategic partnerships with for-profit and non-profit developers and the GC of their choice, where we're providing the modular and we're on-ramping the builder and training them and teaching them how to do modular. So we now have a team in Detroit. We have a team up in Bel Air. We're building a team in Flint. We have a team in Grand Rapids, and we have a team along the lakeshore. So we're building teams of local contractors who said, yes, I want to add modular to what I do. And I could give a builder about 10 reasons why that's a smart thing to do, because they can add more inventory and more business for a lot less labor. So if that's something that you're interested in, by all means, reach out to us. We'd be happy to at least enter into a conversation with you about that. And that's it for my presentation. You're still muted, Andrea.
How about now?
There you go.
There we go. Okay, thank you so much. What a cool background that you have, the Kent County Land Bank. You know, that's something up here that we've been sort of watching the way that land bank and brownfield TIF has sort of expanded and evolved into more of a residential application. And, you know, it's still new to us up here in this region because most of those strategies were just functional in more urban areas. So that's an interesting sort of curve that you took and then into that in modular design. I really appreciate you talking about that, that price point up here. It feels like, you know, it was the solution that everybody came to at the same time. And so all of a sudden it was like, oh, but we could get it done if it was modular. And then the modular universe got sort of overwhelmed, and you see those price points, especially, and it's not just those companies or manufacturers that are trying to get the most out of the market. It's really the same materials pressures and logistics pressures that every other industry is seeing and is just coming out sort of in the same way. So, you know, for us to say, hey, we can make it happen faster. It's not necessarily going to be less expensive, but better from a long-term sustainability standpoint in the greater environment from the manufacturing process, but from a long-term sustainability standpoint for the resident. You know, when you have it well built, it's super insulative, you know, your prices are going down per month. That makes it more affordable and easier for you to maintain and remain in your home. And also, you know, to have fewer people on site that are necessary to sort of make it happen. And I think that point to the 1 month or, you know, a little over a month turnaround or 2 month turnaround there is important to your neighbors. It's important to, you know, your ability to squeeze into that climate, you know, that seasonal restrictive environment there. So we're getting into mud season. You don't want to be driving trucks up and down your neighborhood road and things like that. So we're all pretty familiar with that as well. So I love all those points.
We're actually setting a rather large project in Bel Air, Michigan in this December. So when I get a date, I'll shoot that to you. If people want to come down and watch the install, it's quite something to see, but we're setting it in December.
I am so happy to hear that. I'm so glad. I would be thrilled to see it. And I love, you know, especially that on your website, the time
lapse.
The time lapse video of just showing the way it's, and then it was really poignant. So thank you very much. I'm going to turn it over to Aaron, and we can explore more into the tiny home universe of what this smaller square footage does for people. You know, David mentioned about the price per square foot not going down, but, you know, from that overall smaller price tag at the end, you know, sometimes that the number of square feet really do start to matter. So looking at it from, you know, how are we using our homes now? How functional are they? and how do they offer a better relationship with your quality of life outside of your home too? So all of those things factor into these smaller sizes. So take it away, Aaron.
I want to clarify one thing that I said about smaller homes. With modular, the price per square foot doesn't come down, but in a traditional build, it does. I think Aaron will address that. So only when it's coming to modular, running a small house through a plant doesn't work.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Yes. So let me do my share now. I don't have the as nice of a presentation as far as PowerPoint, but that was a great PowerPoint. I think as far as what we're seeing in the state of Michigan, and not even just the state of Michigan, across the country, I believe that what you hit on there, David, with all the numbers and the data, that's so important for us to really understand it, because I think in order to be able to chip at what we need to fix, we have to understand what we're fixing, and we got to understand those numbers. And I think that so I really appreciate that. And so let me kind of somehow, there we go. All right. So basically, yeah, I'm Aaron Weaver, Innovative Tiny Houses. Innovative Tiny Houses started, for me, it was, my background is, I grew up in the Amish Mennonite culture and community in Ohio. And obviously, as a young age, we were around building. If it was building a barn raise or whatever it might have been, at a very, very young age, we were handing nails, or we were going to get a board or getting a hammer or whatever it was that we were getting, but we were learning a trade. And so my background's always been in building in whatever way, shape, form. That's our background, my background. Moved up into in Michigan, here in northern Michigan. There's an Amish community in East Jordan, Michigan, that kind of started from Ohio. And that's kind of the roots. And they were, looking for work. So if you know anything about the Amish, they don't work outside of, really, they don't like go to Meyer and work, or they don't go to, to a regular factory job or anything like that. So they're very about being at home with their families. And so what I did was, when I started the tiny homes, my whole goal was to work with the Amish and work with my communities, and have the components of our builds be built right in the local community. So I would call us more of a boutique build. We do not have a big warehouse, but we have, if you took all of our shops and you combined them together, it probably would equal up to a very large, square footage of a shop. Because as we grow, we just open up sub shops. So our method is not necessarily adding to our shop, it's adding to our community throughout any Amish community, whether it be downstate, whether it be adding another shop up here. Ohio, we're getting ready to, I had a group of Amish that just left here this morning. They were training and they will be opening up a shop down in Ohio. And then we also, we do everything on our tiny homes, we do in-house. So someone in our community does the job. So our standing seam metal roof is produced. We get by the roll of metal, and we form it all ourselves. All of the window trim, everything we do it in-house, custom built for that project. That way it's not a standard, it's custom fit. So but anyway, going into the that's our process, if you will. We try to stay boutique, but yet our volume is very not boutique, if you will. We do a high volume of builds. We're on track to do 40 builds by the end of this year. Now, tiny homes. A lot of people, tiny homes. What are tiny homes? You see it on HGTV. Tiny homes seem to be, whenever I moved up here to northern Michigan, people had a misconception, because tiny homes could be tiny homes on foundations, right? In my in my industry, tiny homes are on wheels. They can go down the road. They're going to be, third-party inspection. They're all by International Building Code, but then we also use the state code of whatever state that's going in. So we just built one in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So we use International Building Code, but if we know it's going there, we have to then adapt to whatever the state code and local code is. And so we're building across all 48 states, the tiny homes on wheels. So our customers are coming from all across, the nation. However, now that we've kind of opened up about tiny homes up here in Northern Michigan, all of a sudden that has been changing to where we are getting a higher call volume in Northern Michigan than what we are anywhere else in the country. So I've kind of actually narrowed it to take away from what we're doing nationally and actually make it more of a state thing. Because again, we do see a need, especially up here in Northern Michigan. We see everybody's building multi-million-dollar homes. And then what happens is that single family home number is going up as well, because it seems like builders are busier building the multi-million-dollar homes than what they are building the single family home. So our mission, so you can see some of our builds on this here. Our mission is to build quality builds, something that's unique. What we're finding is in the tiny home world, tiny homes on wheels, most people are not having families right away. And so they want to travel and work from home. So that's kind of what we have kind of catered to in a way, to a lot of our customers that are younger and or retired. Retired, instead of maybe buying a house, they buy property up here and they live up here in the summertime with their tiny home. And then they move it down to Florida for the winter time. So what this does though is it's more of an efficient, I'm going to call it a box. It's easier to heat. It's easier to cool. As far as our construction of the tiny homes, they're built just like a home. We do not do anything different than if I were to build a home. And so I think going back to that whole price thing that David was talking about with square footage, a lot of people have a conception that tiny homes are a lot cheaper, and that, it's a lot less expensive to go there. However, yes, the average price of a tiny home is $85,000. So yes, it is. However, it's not in that. When tiny homes first started, it was $40,000, $50,000. Now we're using, such as if you see this white build that's in this one, these windows alone were about $9,000 just for windows. That's just, we're using high quality products. So we also then on top of the tiny homes, and going back to tiny homes, they are Yahoo Finance is basically gave out a report that the tiny home industry is going to grow $3.3 billion in the next 3 years. So there is a lot of demand for the tiny homes, and I think that my job has been, if you're out there, if you're from up here in Traverse City, you might listen to my radio show. And I spend a lot of time in municipalities on the radio educating people what tiny homes are, and that this misconception that they're just a bunch of recycled, products thrown on a car trailer and nothing's by code. So anyway, so the tiny homes, as we were up here building these tiny homes, we started getting a demand for modular homes, or prefab homes. So we just opened up our prefab line of homes, which we have 2 different types. Our first one's going up in Glen Arbor as we speak. The foundation's being done, and this is where, again, I don't want to get into a whole lot because David, I think, covered the modular side of things. But again, it's being able to be in a controlled environment, and I'm gonna probably repeat what both Andrea and David said. The advantages are you don't have contractors showing to and from the site every day. You don't have problem with, a bunch of trash. We all have been to a building site to where, there is paper and tape and, Monster energy drink. Contractors love their Monster energy drinks that, are in the neighbors' yards and, they're all over the place. So, modular is a very well, I feel like it's the best practice right now. Now there are limitations, we can't. There are limitations to it, and I don't really want to. I just kind of hitting on the modular, but I think David hit it very well, and it's just one of our things that we do. But the tiny homes on wheels are our main thing, and I think that the high quality products, we're using the same products that you would in a home. And I think that that's something that we need to educate the municipalities, is that tiny homes on wheels can still be a way for people to get their first starter home. Sometimes, as you can see in this slideshow, or this slide here, there's that one in the middle that's green. It's a 20-foot build. You're probably not gonna, live in there with 3 kids. That's not what we're trying to go after. And I know zoning, and I know that a lot of the municipalities, that's what they're trying to prevent. And they don't want people piling up, and they don't want people to, get a small square footage and have a family of 10 living in it, And so I think that there's a misconception about that. But in all reality, it's our job as, David being a modular builder, me being a tiny home builder, is how can we as a group of people educate our communities, our municipalities, on what the benefits are of a tiny home or of a modular home. And so again, I hope I hit some things that help there. I think I'm open up to, more of questions and kind of go from there.
Thank you so much, Aaron. I am so excited about this idea from my Emmett County focus, because we have worked really hard up here to expand our policies to allow, reducing the minimum square footage and including language for accessory dwelling units, additional dwelling units, and making spaces for a variety of, like you spoke to, lifestyle choices, and the full spectrum of the phases of life people have. Frequently, we've sort of been up here in this 3-bedroom house on half an acre universe for a long time, and it's important to understand that a tiny home, especially tiny home on wheels, it's not meant to be necessarily a forever thing. Just like your first apartment as a young person or a young professional or young couple was not a forever thing. And that big house that you have maybe with your family or what have you isn't necessarily a forever space either. You might want to downsize, and you might want to travel, and you might want to engage, with the outdoors or your environment a little bit differently. I love having you speak to the building codes and the insulations and all that kind of stuff, but seeing the windows, in a small space like that, to be able to use these, super high quality windows and engage that inside outside feeling is super important up here, and is something that we all really prioritize with our green space and our, land conservancies and things like that. Being able to be up here in this beautiful place in a way that we can afford, and a way that allows us to afford the other things and other hobbies or habits that we have. So the tiny home discussion, like you said, can be a little bit fraught up here. But the more we have companies and products that represent really nice aesthetics, really good quality materials, it can start occupying that space of, look, it's not scary, it's beautiful, it's a place that actually can add to a neighborhood, even as an accessory dwelling unit, for a multi-generational situation, or a seasonal or year-round worker, or somebody that just needs to be walkable to their community and things like that. So I love these examples of success. And the other thing that I wanted to sort of highlight that you were talking about is your production sort of facilities being smaller and iterable. You know, you as a person and as an organization have a focus with the Amish and Mennonite community that is incredible. And you know, we love all of our groups up here, but that concept of being able to take this this build space and make it work for lots of smaller communities and smaller build teams and actually function in a year-round way for them. It's that really speaks to the kind of what we need up here. We don't have large manufacturing facilities that could accommodate things like that. And in order to do that, it would be a huge ask. So that is really, really cool.
I also look at myself when I started this company was, okay, we are working on trying to, put a product out there that's, being more sustainable. However, just like what we do in the the modular world does, what the prefab, and it's how can you be efficient in that, correct? So my building practices and the way I have my shop set up is how can I, instead of getting this big, huge warehouse, not that that's wrong, but I am able to be more efficient even on the building side of thing and the flow and the process of building. So it's almost like I'm trying to also fix that side of things too. Now, not everybody can do it that way. We're building small homes, so we're able to not have to worry about a large facility. But it is definitely the Amish community. Again, it's not that I only work with the Amish, but that's primarily what we work with. But that's what I know. That's what I grew up in. So definitely a nice way of building.
Yeah, and does have a lot of sort of community confidence as far as quality and safety and durability and things like that. These homes, I didn't mean to say they weren't meant to be forever. The home itself is, but not to be applied to different phases of your life necessarily. So yeah, I would love to open it up to the attendees. If they have any questions, you can use your question and we will all respond to that. I don't want to be crass, but a big portion of what I do in the housing universe up here, and one of the major limitations that we have is, water sewer infrastructure. So how does, for example, a tiny home on wheels or as an accessory dwelling unit in a neighborhood, a smaller tiny home like you're building, Aaron, how does that hook into, or what kind of needs, what does that require as far as installation goes?
Yeah, so it all obviously it all depends on where it's going. But if let's say it's going to the back, it's going to use the same hookups as what a house would be. So maybe on a smaller scale, but a lot of times if we're putting them in a township or something, we're following whatever the minimums are of the township. So there is a certain level of, like, as far as septic well, there's minimums in a township that are required. However, if someone was in like Antrim County, let's say, sometimes, if you're in out in the sticks or something and you don't want to put septic or you don't want to put a well in, we can set these up just like it would be like an RV or camper, and we call that boondocking. And so, for instance, currently, and now this isn't necessarily, this doesn't fit in everybody's, this is a scary thing to say about it, but a compost toilet. But this compost toilet is, it's all made with cedar shavings. So like it's basically a 5-gallon bucket, and that's what it is. Now, again, that's somebody that's traveling down the road.
Yeah.
That's their way of doing it. They want to do it. Now, if it's going to be sitting, and this is the thing is, so this is the conception of what counties and stuff think of, right? Compost toilets, and you got all this, water that's just going out on the ground or whatever it is. That's the other part of this whole thing is we can, if we're in a county or somewhere where we need to make sure we're zoned or we're doing the right thing by code, we just adapt to that and we build this by code. So the answer to the question is it all depends on what you're doing with it, but it's the same type of hookup as if you were going to hook up into a house. Well, septic and water and electric.
Okay.
Now everything is pre-done and it's just got hookups on. We have like what we call a plumbing box, and you just hook into that, and you can unhook it and you can move it to the next place if you want to.
Okay, so site specific, but you have to plan ahead. Fantastic. Yep. And the question in the chat that I think has maybe two answers is where and how each of these homes are inspected. And my sense is once probably at the factory and then once on site when everything has been hooked up appropriately and set. So David, I'll let you.
So with modular, every house plan has to be submitted to LARA, the State Department of LARA, for stamped approval to be built in the state of Michigan. And then, at the factory, they have a third party inspector that comes through on a regular basis just to make sure that they're following. And then each line of assembly, electric, plumbing, HVAC, insulation is also checked by third party. So it's all checked third party. And the third party, the interesting thing is the third party will not let it leave the plant until they show that it was built to that state stamped approval. So that's how modular is done. And then once it's set in the foundation, that's an area where Novolab works really hard with the local building department, wherever building department reigns over that area, whether it's county or local, to educate them. And once they get to know it, they get very comfortable with it and in fact embrace it. But so like for I'll only give you one example. In plumbing, there's literally a waste line sticking out and a water service line sticking out underneath the house, and it's hooked up to the main, and you fire it up and you go. So all the plumbing inspector does is looks underneath the house and says, "Yep, that was put together right, good to go." It's that simple. So from the inspection standpoint, the municipalities really like it because they get to charge the same amount for their inspection fee, but they're on site for about 5 minutes.
Yeah, so it's just sort of a building department and certificate of occupancy. Yes, it's a safe sort of structure. It's been installed appropriately.
Yep.
That's phenomenal. So again, getting at that strategy of the time crunch, if you've only got 1 or 2 building inspectors for the whole, for the whole area, let them spend a little less time on site. That's spectacular.
Yep. I also was asked in the chat if we have any multi-unit modular units other than townhouses, and the answer is yes. I would say though that we used to be able to build very large multifamily units, but again, with the no customization rule in the modular industry, it's very limited. We could do some quadplexes and some sixplexes. If it's not real complicated, like a 4 stories on a steel foundation, those, they can't do those anymore. But we have some really efficient designs that are being used in the affordable housing industry around the state for some really nice, 1,100, 850 square foot 4-unit apartment complexes that work really well.
And what is your availability for expansion, or your prediction for how your company is able to or willing to grow over the next few years? Because obviously the demand that we have well established, and the predictive nature of the whole industry.
So we've been given that a lot of thought. We've learned the lessons the hard way. So we tried to manage the projects ourselves from a distance, and it doesn't work. We got beat up pretty bad on a project that we tried to manage 3 hours away. And so this model where we're working with local developers, local builders, we on-ramp them. That's the word that I use in the modular. I just had a group from Detroit come to the Holland project and walk through because it's the same model. So they say, "Oh, this is the model we're getting. We can walk through, we can see this." In that situation, from a just a production standpoint, we're pretty we have quite a lot of capacity. Then it comes down to the factory. The Strattonville, Pennsylvania factory is only about 4 months out on orders, which is pretty good. And then we have another plant in Pennsylvania that's about 4 months out. That being said, I'm in regular phone calls with industry leaders, and we believe that production is going to start coming back again. We think second quarter of next year, I think we might start to see some normal. I don't think we'll ever get back to normal. Pre-pandemic, I could order a house and get it in 12 weeks.
So I don't want to expand too far beyond this discussion, but because you're in this, what is your sense that Michigan, or even the lower parts of Michigan, is there room for there to be a larger manufacturing facility established or started, or is it better to just sort of support the ones that already exist?
Support the ones that already exist. However, there is a new factory opening up. I'm working closely with them. I'm working with them in Florida. They're opening up a factory in Lakeland, Florida, because we started a Florida business. But then that same company is opening up a factory either in Southern Michigan or Northern Ohio. They're looking at it. But you got to remember, these got to go across the road. You got to get supplies in and out. So, the factory is going to have to be somewhere near like 8094 or the I-80 corridor. It's got, because you have to have a lot of materials and houses moving in and out. The biggest drawback we have right now from a capacity standpoint is having set crews to set these houses and hauling crews to haul them. So one of the companies, it's the sister company of ours that we just learned together, they're in North Carolina. They actually started their own set crew and their own hauling crew, and we're actually looking at doing the same maybe next year. So because you have to be a certified set crew to set these, and that's a skill set. There's only 2 set crews that are open that'll do for anybody, 2 in the entire state of Michigan.
Wow. So that's a real opportunity from a sort of workforce educational standpoint.
Oh yeah.
Really leaning into that it's heavy equipment and
set crew is really good pay, really good pay, good benefits. But you gotta, you don't have to have any pre-qualifications. So we self-train, but you gotta be willing to travel. So, when if you're living Kalamazoo and you're on our set crew and we're setting for 2 weeks in Bel Air, you're living out of a trailer up in Bel Air for 2 weeks. So it's not for the faint of heart.
Right. Sorry, Michiganders aren't faint of heart.
No doubt.
That's true. All right, maybe it speaks to how comprehensive both of your presentations were, but I'm not seeing a ton more questions in chat. Are any of you seeing anything that I don't see?
I don't.
Looking good. Okay, is there anything that we missed or that you're inspired to sort of revisit as we come to a close here?
I didn't touch on it in the presentation because there wasn't enough time, but there is another model out there that I would encourage folks to look at if they're looking for affordable housing. Several years ago, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac got together with the National Modular Home Builders Association and said, we need to come up with something to address this affordable housing crisis. And so what they did, you can look it up online. It's either MH Advantage or CrossMod. It's called 2 different things, but it's the same product. It's either MH Advantage or CrossMod. And what it is, it's a hybrid house. So it's a house built to HUD standard, but using modular materials. So the only difference between a modular home and a HUD home is the HUD home's on a steel frame, but to get qualified as a CrossMod or a MH Advantage, it has to be permanently affixed to the foundation with a certificate of affixture that it will never be removed and put on. And they have some design aesthetics that are involved in it. So there's a whole checklist that the plant has to qualify for that house to be a CrossMod. But if you build a CrossMod house, Fannie and Freddie will give a full 30-year underwritten standard mortgage on it. So from a home buyer, you're building equity. It's no different than a regular home, but the same model, the same ranch model, because it can only be built as ranches, the same ranch model built to mod standard versus MH Advantage standard is about $30,000 cheaper.
That is significant.
Yeah, so that's and it is not taken hold in the industry. And the reason it hasn't taken hold of the industry, and the undercurrent in all this is getting people to think outside the box, local leaders, customers, builders, whatever, is that the industry as a whole, this is industry language, but they call them trailer dogs. So those are the people who do trailer parks, and all they do is double wides. And then you have your old your old the lot models where you have this modular dealer out in a beltway somewhere. They've got 7 models and that's all they sell. No one in the industry has an impetus to push this model forward. So there's been nobody pushing. I'm literally nationwide one of the first people that's been pushing this. So we're looking at doing a bunch of these in Grand Rapids in the coming year.
And the best access for somebody to use that model or that style is through a company like yours.
Yes, you have to buy it through a dealer.
Yeah.
So, I mean, our website is novolabdevelopment.com, and there's an email address at the bottom. You're welcome to contact me. I can send you information on it. I have all kinds of write-ups and background and overviews of what that product looks like, including brochures.
Oh, fantastic. I'm really glad that you brought that up at the end there. That is, yeah, I mean, and a lot of what we're trying to do in this missing middle universe and language is really create inventory of all kinds, address lifestyle choices and, you know, the full spectrum of income sort of limits, but really making this home experience, whether you're a renter or a home buyer, you know, this is about, and I love that you brought it up, you know, in your presentation, David, like this is about us not setting aside, you know, this is about us blending in. This is about all of us creating all of these variety of spaces for people and their variety of needs within all of our communities and not separate from. So it's not obvious from the outside and it's not necessarily obvious from the inside. And it gives people access to make these choices within our communities, stay within their own home communities, and, you know, create that vitality from a community standpoint that we're really looking for. Do we have more questions? More of this MH Advantage information? Yes, absolutely. We will have all of those links in the follow-up email. And one more time, David, for you, email address, website?
I just put it in the
Perfect. And Aaron, you as well, if you can link that into the chat function too.
Yep, got it.
Fantastic. Thanks. Anything else in closing, Aaron?
No, I mean, I think one thing I would add is, you know, kind of, I guess, to maybe echo what Dave said is, I think the most important thing that we've got to get is our mindset, get people's mindsets to don't think that modular, prefab, or tiny homes are the same as what they were maybe years and years and years ago. They're built at high quality and high standards. They're, you know, modular builders, tiny home builders, we're held accountable, probably more accountable, because we're not only getting inspected by municipalities, but we're getting inspected by a third party inspection. You know, and like for our inspections, they're all videoed. So whenever someone buys our home, they have they can log in and they can see everything that's behind the walls. They can see the plumbing, they can see the electric, they can see, you don't see that when you're building a standard home. You know, so I believe that we, and David probably can agree with me, we're held at almost a higher standard and accountability than you know, as a modular or as a tiny home builder, than what a lot of builders that are just your standard builders. So our mindset's got to change as a whole, that modular, prefab, tiny homes, that is still built at high quality.
Yeah. And it sounds like from the projections in the tiny home industry that there is obviously room for more. And I guess my question to you, Aaron, is would you encourage a young person that's inclined to build and work with their hands and design to stretch into this industry? Do you look at this and say this is viable, this is enjoyable, and this is consistent with a good lifestyle as far as a builder goes?
Absolutely. I think that I encourage it all the time. I mean, just like what I said with our model, I mean, we're opening up, you know, shops all the time to grow and expand because there is a need for it, you know. And I think that what's unique about building tiny homes is you could do it in just a small pole barn. You could actually build a tiny home if you wanted to. You could build it out on the back, you know, on in your driveway, you know. But again, that does kind of defeat the purpose of trying to stay in a controlled environment to where, you know, your products aren't. But it can be done. I mean, when I started it, my first build that I built, which was in my first presentation there that I was standing in front of, that was built in a driveway to see if it was even possible of doing. And
so that sort of barrier to entry for a young professional or an entrepreneur is somewhat lower. I guess I'm thinking there, and hopefully that, you know, as we were speaking to the educational opportunity or the through line for young skilled tradesmen and workers in this arena, you know, the tiny home sort of business owner, smaller local production company is somewhat viable.
Absolutely. And I would encourage, if anybody's on there, to call, reach out. I mean, I think there's so much business out there that we got, you know, I don't have a competitive mindset. And I think, you know, it's how can we be creative? You know, there is work out there for, David knows, I mean, there is work out there in this industry.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, let's make
I'm
sure
gonna
we
finish. I'm gonna finish with one very brief quote. So I had a busload, literally, of people from the state of Michigan, governor's office, representatives, MISTA, everybody, and then we toured the Topeka, Indiana plant. And Steve Payne, who's the national sales rep for Champion, was standing on the deck of a double wide, and he started off the entire day, and he said, "For most of you, when you look at me standing here, you're saying, oh, that's just a double wide trailer, and you're poo-pooing it." He said, "But for somebody that doesn't have a house, this is their castle. And this means a lot to them. So we've got to destigmatize all types of housing, because for somebody who is unhoused or underhoused, having something like that is everything. It's their castle."
Yep, absolutely. And yeah, just having the opportunity to access or have access to a space that fits your needs is the most important thing. That's what we're all trying to do. Man, oh man, what a discussion, you guys. I really enjoyed it. And I think it's super relevant to the work that we're all trying to do in the region. And hopefully it will inspire some sort of creative minds from our viewers and listeners. And don't be surprised if you are inundated with calls and questions and possible projects. So I appreciate going beyond just your own organization into this sort of mind space of what we're doing and how we're addressing our needs regionally. And I hope that we can do more together. Thank you so very much for your time today.
Well, thanks for having us.
And thanks everybody for listening. Bye-bye.
Bye.